And so, should I have said that? So, considering I'll be carrying this bill on the House floor, it seemed like an appropriate time for me to go ahead and begin discussing the bill. I bring before you Senate Bill.
I'm assuming he's going to be walking in the door any minute.
He might be. Is he behind me? Bring before you Senate Bill 396, which has to do with HERDI. I wasn't as familiar with HERDI when it came up. Representative Purcell, you may be familiar with it. It's located in Savannah at the port. And what it is a research and development center, a research testing and development center. It started back in 1938 or around then by Charles HERDI, and it's currently attached to economic development within the state, but the bill here is asking for your approval to realign it to the Board of Regents. And the reason is we want to attach it to Georgia Southern University. What we have at Georgia Southern, well, what we have at HERDI currently is 2 PhDs on staff. And if we align this to Georgia Southern, what we get is over 100 PhDs in especially the STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, and math, to where they can put so much more into it and we could grow this thing tremendously. There's no fiscal impact with the realignment. The jobs are maintained with the realignment. The location will not be moving. It will stay in Savannah. The date of transition would be July 1 of this year. Of course, it would help businesses grow. Just tremendous potential with a move like this and the resources, the human resources we could get from it. And it also would open up some opportunities for federal grants through Georgia Southern. It would be renamed to the Georgia Southern University HERDI Research Institute. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have about the bill.
All right, does anybody have any questions?
I just wanted to check. You said that no jobs will be lost, so everything is going to remain the same except the name change and under the legal.
It's a different. Okay. That is correct. Yes.
I just wanted to make sure because I had heard differently, and I'm trying to adjust accordingly with what's going on.
It'll be under the leadership of Georgia Southern. That could be considered a bit of a change, but that's it.
Well, and I'm okay with that. I was just concerned about how we're going to close the job.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like to bring up the president, if you will consider that, so he can talk further about it. Okay.
That's fine, and actually, why don't we get several questions, and then
Okay.
I have a couple of questions or observations I want to make.
Sure.
That's okay, and we'll let the rest of them on. And let me say first, I have no opposition to this bill, but I want to get a few clarifications. I have a sheet of paper that was delivered to me that had some comments, and I want to ask them. About benefits to HERDI, it says that reduce the overall operating overhead costs through consolidation. Any idea what type of figures those are? And again, we need to ask, if you want to go ahead and stand up, Mr. President, that's fine.
Okay.
I have several cost questions. That's one. Then down here, the other part of the benefit, it says improved potential for HERDI to become a very profitable center. That's a pretty ambiguous statement, a very profitable center. So I'd like to kind of hear some thoughts on that. And then I had one other on the Q&A said, talked about
Well, you're going to test my ability to remember questions, because I'm going to fail miserably already, Mr. Chairman, so please.
I'm sorry, that's probably an unfair way to do it.
No, that's quite all right. I would ask you to repeat the question, but that wouldn't be fair either. To Representative Purcell.
Friendly question.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Representative Purcell, the current employees at HERDI will be maintained with the exception of the director. The director is approaching retirement. We are just getting ready to launch a national search to replace him. So he, as far as I know at this point in time, will be the only individual that will be replaced. There's some 40 employees at the Savannah plant and an additional 8 in the Dawsonville facility, and we have no intention of changing those individuals at all. With regard to the profitability aspect of HERDI, the word profit I think is probably being used rather liberally. Essentially, HERDI is a soft money operation. No, I take full credit for that. Yes, sir. It's a soft money situation. Its very survival is based off of contracts. Aligning it with Georgia Southern, and using that brain power you mentioned of the 100 PhDs we have will allow HERDI to significantly diversify its portfolio. Right now, it's almost entirely in the paper aspect of product development. That's not surprising, since its legacy is with what came from HERDI, who is, as we all know, is tremendously responsible for turning pine trees into paper, essentially. With Georgia Southern coming on board will allow us to move into other areas such as bioproducts, biofuels, polymer science, material science, and the like, which will bring additional grants and contracts to HERDI, because we'll have that expertise present to be able to do that. With regard to the money that's been appropriated, the governor in his budget placed $614,000, as I recall, for maintenance and operation only. That is part of the formula that goes to the Board of Regents, and it is based, as I understand it, off square footage of the facility, just like the universities get their formula, M&O money based off square footage of facilities that they have. But yes, sir, that will be in the.
So since that was not part of the reason last year, that's a new $614,000.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Yes, sir. And at that point, I'm going to ask your indulgence, and if you would repeat a couple of your other questions for me, sir.
It really is just about
yeah.
What I'm trying to get a handle on is before and after. Was HERDI profitable, or is
sure.
HERDI profitable
yeah.
now? I understand it to be very profitable afterwards. And so I just like, and you're talking about the increased revenue, I'm just trying to get an understanding of, for that $614,000 of taxpayer dollars,
right.
that are going to the region before that, I'm just trying to get an idea of can we quantify, and I know it's hard, but also know
yep.
y'all are smart people, and you wouldn't be doing this unless you've done some forecasts, and so we're trying to get a
sure.
understanding of that, so that, sometimes down here in the legislature, we do things, and then we don't follow up a year or two later to see how well they work. And so I'm just trying to get an idea of a year or two down the road when we look at this, and y'all come before the appropriations, want some more money, we can see that we're very happy
sure.
to fund good investment.
I understand completely, absolutely. One of the questions you asked along those lines has to do with savings, if you will, by having it come to Georgia Southern. We're in the process, even as we speak, of looking at how they manage their business, how do they do payroll, how do they do human resources, how do they do maintenance, how do they do custodial, all those aspects of things, to see how Georgia Southern can help reduce those costs by sheer economy of scale. I can't give you exact numbers on that. I'm quite happy to do that if you wish, and those numbers are being developed even as we speak. But just by virtue of some of the consultants that had been on HERDI's payroll in the past, which we're able to provide that expertise, has saved quite a bit of money already, quite a bit meaning several hundred thousand.
One final question.
Yes, sir.
And so another reason for this is the hope and intention that there is an economic development of these
yes.
companies as we develop this, that we want to further invest in our economy here in Georgia. That is the real motivation behind this.
Absolutely, and the governor has made it crystal clear that the main reason he wants us to go to Georgia Southern, and his expectation of it going to Georgia Southern, is not just profit, it's jobs. And that is something that we're taking very, very seriously, the role that Georgia Southern has in southern Georgia. Right now, the companies bring their research to HERDI, do the stuff, and then take that back to their companies outside of the state. Our number one goal in taking HERDI on now is to make sure that when those companies bring things to HERDI, that they spin off companies that stay here in Georgia and generate jobs for the state.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Questions of any of the committee members?
As a follow-up, Mr. Chairman, to your comment, this is probably something that the legislature hadn't done in a long, long time and probably should do with issues like this, is put something in there directing them to come back to explain to you what they've done, successfully or unsuccessfully, in a year or 2 years or whatever. Put a date in there and ask them to come back and tell you what they've done. It's just an idea. We don't have to do it on this one, but it's just a thought.
I think that's a very good idea. A lot of us that think that on many of these measures, we need to do some either sunsets or other things. But I think at this particular stage, I want to just know what they're saying, and as we go through the appropriations process in the future, hopefully we'll have the appropriate memory and whatever, so that we're not being asked to shut down 4-H clubs or other things because the Regions doesn't have enough money to fund these things. You get my drift. So, any other questions? Representative Powell, I believe you got something?
I would. I'd like to be recognized for a motion.
You're recognized.
I move that this House move forward Senate Bill 396 with a do pass recommendation.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion request, we'll go ahead and call a vote. All those in favor of do pass for Senate Bill 396, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries on the rules.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We expect great things out of it. Thank you very much. Hope that new football injury doesn't slow you down anyway.
So do I, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy getting to know you. All right.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what.
Our next bill to be heard will be Senate Bill 371, Senator Pippin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. I bring you Senate Bill 371 today. It has to do with community improvement districts, which are districts that are created by local governments who can impose taxes on themselves for various reasons. The General Assembly in the past has enabled them to do water, sewer, and storm drain improvements, roads, curbs, sidewalks, parks, any number of things, but did not mention anything that would have to do with a municipally owned airport. This bill enables a community improvement district with the approval of the local government that owns and operates an airport to be able to put part of their funds into the airport for improvements. Now, they cannot mandate this without the agreement of the local government. They cannot own airports, but they can take some of their own tax revenues for improvements for existing facilities. This bill came about for the Town Center Improvement District in Cobb County. McCollum Field is located within that district, and they want to participate in funding a lighting improvement program on the runways. This, the way I see it, if you're taking self-imposed taxes and putting them in improvements that ultimately save property tax dollars that would have to be pledged for the same purposes, kind of like killing rattlesnakes. I don't think there's a bad way to do that. So I'd ask your approval of this. Be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Do I have any questions from our committee members? Do we have anyone that wants to testify on House Bill or Senate Bill 371? Yes, sir.
I would mention this. I think there's some concern from Gwinnett, or there has been some, but I want to stress again that the Community Improvement District cannot impose their will on the local government. It has to be mutually agreeable between the government and the Community Improvement District. They have to approve the project. They have to approve the monies. And so at all times, the municipality or county that owns the airport is in the driver's seat as far as control of this.
Any questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're getting ready to hear Senate Bill 446. The author is working on a slight little last-minute change. So we can just sit tight for a moment while we do this.
I can start presenting the bill, Mr. Chairman. Whenever. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, what an exciting day it is to come before an outstanding committee and have the leadership of the House here and other distinguished members. And I'm very fortunate this year to carry another bill of Representative Powell. And he doesn't have many bills, as you know, Alan Powell. But I bring to you one of the governor's bills, the bill which makes sense. This is merging the inspections from the Department of Labor of certain things like elevators, escalators, dumbwaiters, and that's not waiters that aren't very smart, and other entities that are regarding inspections over to the Fire Safety Commissioner, which is what they do. And to give you kind of an example of how it makes sense, if you got a sprinkler system in an elevator shaft and you got an elevator, it makes sense that we can do it all at one time. You talk about efficiency in government and streamlining. This is it right here. So that's it in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman. Be glad to answer any questions. I have a little amendment that I'd like to ask the committee to consider, and that would be that after the merger, next year before the House Government Affairs Committee and the Senate Government Oversight Committee, that they come back and tell us how this has worked, how this has been put together.
Matter of fact, I think we want to thank our good colleague down there our good independent colleague that offered that suggestion on the previous bill, right?
Yeah, you're an inspiration to me. There are a lot of independents in this building this year, I think.
I do have a question. I'm trying to find that there was a section in here, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm stalling for the legislative council to draft the amendment, but there was one part in here that talks about the fines. Here it is. If you look at page 14, it talks about the penalty of not having the inspection within 60
dear.
calendar days being $500. And then on the next page, they talk about the fee shall not exceed $10 per annum.
I'd have to ask the experts to give me some their opinion on that because I'm not familiar with that.
The reason I ask this, it's a true story, is up in Forsyth County, we have an annual steam engine parade. And I had a constituent a year or so ago that said that they tried to work with the Department of Labor because they have a number of steam engines that participate in this. Many of these steam engines go back many, many years. And that they had worked it out where the Department of Labor would come up one time and inspect them all at one time in order to
Makes sense.
save costs versus having different dates. But I'm just trying to understand, does a $10 fee really result in a $500 fine if you don't do it? Or am I misreading that? And I think the majority leader, did you intentionally push the button? I did. Go ahead.
I could ask the author a question, and you drew my attention to it by referring to that. I unfortunately don't have an answer to your question, but on line 451, I'm wondering if
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a copy of the bill. Do you have an extra copy? Can you answer some of that?
What it is it's a $500 penalty for not having the
What I'm-
inspection. That's just the actual
I'm on
penalty.
page 14, line 451. Begins with the word owner or user, comma. And then it says
Inspectors shall be inspected.
inspectors shall be inspected. Why do we inspect inspectors? Is that
You know, that's a
typo
good
there?
point. That don't make sense either, does it? Yeah. Shall we change that and make it really mean what it says? And I mean, you're talking about inspection, not inspectors. Tours. It should say inspectors shall inspect, shouldn't it? 451.
Boilers and pressure vehicles subject to operating certificate inspections by special or I'm wondering if the whole rest of it might just been left out a sentence or something, because none of that reads together to me, or owner or user. I'm not sure where that's coming in either.
It appears that it's saying the inspector shall be inspected, and I don't think that's what they meant.
Well, had always assumed that you'd committed this to memory as you do all the other quality legislation you had, so I was asking what you meant by
Mr.
that.
Leader, you know, since that was current law, I'm afraid that I overlooked that, which is, you know, I only ask forgiveness, beg forgiveness.
Can we ask Legislative Council to see what the intent of that is and maybe fix that, since we're...
I would think that'd be a great idea. I'm embarrassed because I did read this very closely and I just didn't catch that.
Do you have a suggestion?
Okay. I think that the purpose of that language was for these events that the chairman had spoke of around the state. It's not just in your area. You have a lot of these agricultural events where they'll bring in all of these old antique tractors and things and boilers, and it was always that they needed to be inspected, but the state didn't necessarily do it because it was a one-day event, and these were the hobbyists and all of those, and they were called the inspectors of their own equipment and the such. Now, this is some antiquated language, but I think that was the gist of this, so that they would be looking at those, since they didn't want to have a ag celebration somewhere and somebody kick off an old boiler type tractor, something ran a sorghum mill or something, and it blow up.
Should we have it elsewhere?
There's a provision, Mr. Chairman, on line 385 for a special inspector, and then there's a provision in 387 about an owner or user inspection. And so knowing that there's an owner inspection, a user inspection, or a special inspector, it very well may make sense, just like it says, that inspections by special or owner or user inspectors, because all of those people are inspectors, a special inspector, an owner inspector, and a user inspector, if you look at that previous page.
And Mr. Chairman, I would say that after this merger takes place, you'd get a different perspective after they do some of these, and I would suggest we may have some housekeeping measures in this regard next year. That'd be fair to say, gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, might take you 2 years.
another question on, again, maybe syntax again, on line 389, which Chairman Powell was just talking about. We have added the word office, not capitalized, which indicates to me it's not a defined term. So how could anything be satisfactory to an intangible office? We're changing from board to office. Chairman Mullis, could you tell me what you intended there? I'm not picking at your bill.
No, it's
I'm all
okay.
for your bill.
Yeah.
It's just...
91 is where the definition of office, you're saying, line 91.
Okay.
I do not know why we moved.
I got it. Never mind. Forget that.
Well, can you tell me?
It's office is defined.
Okay.
Defined.
It's in the definitions. Okay. I just forgot that. I knew that.
Office means the Office of Safety, Fire, and
That's the office we were talking about, Mr.
Right.
Leader.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, did we get legislative council's, Evan had talked to the author about it, I don't know if you want to see it before we...
No, just read it. Be fine with me.
I also want to, before we move on, I want to give at least an opinion on Representative Powell's comment on the wording that the leader found. What line is that, John? Where in the agenda? I'm sorry. That was on 450.
One.
Line 450 through 452, that area.
Mr. Chairman, as I'd said, this brings up it sort of brought up some thoughts of past years, and what we try to do is keep the state into an overbearing situation with a lot of these folks, because people that rebuild and these type of tractors and the old boilers and all, they have these festivals where they pretty well know what they're doing. But if I remember right, we had a case that drew up years ago that they couldn't get inspectors to come down because they just didn't have enough time, because there's a lot of these festivals that go on, and this was sort of the language. Now, whether this language is perfected or not, this very well could have been some of the old Denmark Gruber language that he had put in, basically say, if you're rebuilding these and you're going to be at a festival, you inspect your own business and your own equipment. So we don't particularly need a state inspection to come over and look at an old tractor with a boiler on it.
We have another question over here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In that same vein, Representative Powell, I'm just trying to grasp the special inspectors. Does this include the centered of the insurance industry when they come out and do boiler inspections? Is that doing it on behalf of the?
Well, this is mainly focusing on fire safety, life safety, and those kind of things.
Yeah, but this,
This deals very specifically with only this area.
Yeah, but these are boilers, right? I mean, this will include heating boilers.
Yeah, I would say so.
So,
yes.
in having the property and casualty background that I do, that any boiler, very respectfully, is really a bomb. And if they're not inspected and managed properly, if there's certain relief valves, and if you allow pressure to exceed or too much heat, blah blah blah, you've got a disaster on your hands. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is does this bill continue to allow the Hartford Steam boiler and the other? There's only several insurance companies out there to come out and do their own field inspections on behalf of the policyholders and the property owners.
Well, I know those boilers will be inspected, and
they don't.
Right, and they will be overseen regardless of how the law is, whether they allow them to inspect it or they come out and inspect it.
And that's really what I'm trying to interpret in this language that Representative J. Powell was alluding to. So that's still, that whole process is still,
it will still be
happening.
Right, exactly. That does not change in this bill.
And what your focus seems to be is on the special occasion antique steam locomotives or processing equipment.
Right.
It's in fairs,
which is already happening. We're moving that function from the Department of Labor to the Department of Fire Insurance Safety.
Right.
Because we believe we can consolidate that and have eventually one person doing the same thing for all these things at that location, whether it's fire safety, life safety, or labor-related, insurance-related. It will all be taking place. There are backlog currently at the Department of Labor of some 7,000 inspections. This will help get that done quicker, because these people are already out inspecting some of those similar things in the same facility or area, but they can now inspect these others too, eventually.
And obviously the Commissioner of Insurance is amenable to taking on these added duties.
He was at, these gentlemen worked for him or with him, and you can see the head shaking. Shake your head, see? That means the Insurance Fire Safety Commissioner is for it.
Thank you.
He's representing the state of Georgia somewhere.
Okay, who's got the button? Leader, do you have it again? Now you're off. Representative Morgan.
And I see you. Certainly.
This transition, how long will it take to train the inspectors to do this new work?
Well, currently, those inspectors already exist and are trained. They would just be moving over. Yeah. Not currently. But I would say that there'll be some cross-training, and the department evaluate in the near future of who will do what and who's best at what. But it's going to take some time to do that. And, you know, hopefully with Georgia's growth, we'll need everybody.
And how many inspectors are there within both departments currently?
Well, I think we're moving about 62 people over. 63. And
42 are inspectors.
and others clerical. But thanks for that question.
Okay, I think I've got the language that'll fix both of those areas all. Here, any other questions of the author on this bill at this time? All right. If everybody would turn to, I'll entertain the, well, move on the bill first. What's the pleasure of the committee on the bill? We have a do pass and a second, and now we'll open it up for any discussion or amendments. Let me, if everybody will turn to page 14, starting on line 450. I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'll come back and read the sentence. Where it says boilers and pressure vessels, put a comma. So boilers and pressure vessels, comma, subject to operating certificate inspections by special, delete the word or, owner, comma, or user inspectors, take out the comma there, and then put a comma after inspectors. So the sentence would read this way. Boilers and pressure vessels, subject to operating certificate inspections by special, owner, or user inspectors shall be inspected within 60 days. That read correctly? That would be the suggestion if anybody wants to make a offer an amendment.
So these on the minutes are read.
We have a motion and second on the amendment. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, amendment passes. And we have another amendment. This would be bottom of page 2. We have a new sentence, or this, excuse me, this would be F. And F would read this way. Make sure the author is okay with it. And we needed a clarification on what the name of the Senate committee is, but so F would say the safety fire, and I'd like the commissioners to listen to this. The safety fire commissioner shall provide a report to the House Committee on Governmental Affairs, that's us, and the Senate Governmental Oversight Committee
I think that's correct.
at the 2013 regular session of the Georgia General Assembly, outlining the effects and results of this code section and providing information on any problems or concerns with respect to the implementation of this code section. That would be the suggested amendment to accomplish what the I said at the 2013 regular session of the General Assembly, of the Georgia General Assembly. So prior to the beginning of the 2013? What's the date next second?
I wanted to say prior to the first day of the 2013 regular session.
Okay. Prior to the first day of the 2013 regular session. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or on that amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign. And that passes. Now we have before us, we call it over here, a committee sub, as amended, a committee sub of Hearing none, but, we always like to help perfect this bill. We work very hard to do that.
No, I'd only say something negative about the Senate, so I won't comment.
Those in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, appreciate it. Meeting is adjourned.
Always get to see.